Billionaire discovered his maid's daughter, 12, washing dishes at 3 a.m. The amazing truth exposed. As the clock struck 3, the expansive mansion lay cloaked in silence, save for the low hum of a refrigerator in the pristine kitchen. Jack Malone wandered through the marble corridors of his luxury haven, engrossed in the dull ache of insomnia. He sought a midnight snack, something indulgent to drown out the loneliness that twisted in his gut. Emerging from darkness, he reached the kitchen only to freeze at the sight before him. There, knees on the cold tile, was Mia, the 12-year-old daughter of his devoted maid, immersed in her task of scrubbing dishes. The disparity between their worlds loomed large. Jack, the billionaire entrepreneur, surrounded by lavish comforts, while Mia knelt beneath the weight of unacknowledged responsibility. A chill slithered down Jack's spine as he observed the intensity in her small hands, the way she focused, not just on the dishes, but the act of service itself. It struck him. While he strategically maneuvered through board meetings and secured lucrative contracts, this child was quietly enduring her own battles. His heart ached at the realization of how far he'd strayed from the ideals he once held, the drive for creativity, the yearning to make a difference. In the shifting shadows of his mansion, he felt a creeping sense of self-awareness stirring. Should I just stand here? He wrestled internally. What helps her? Money? Attention? Or nothing at all? His wealth had built walls between him and true connection, blurring the lines between generosity and entitlement. He had everything he desired, but at what cost? He questioned his own worth and purpose. If he listened to the whispers of his conscience, could he find a genuine connection with the girl in front of him? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jack leaned against the doorway, the artistic side of him leaped forth. He recalled his childhood, building sculptures from scraps, expressing emotions through creative outlets. Mia's presence was electric, reminding him of forgotten aspirations. He approached her slowly, aware of the tension between their lives, yet craving that shared spark of inspiration. "What are you making?" he asked gently. Her eyes flickered with surprise as she stood to greet him. "Just cleaning, sir." "Enough of that, Mia. Show me the art you create." Her apprehension dissolved when she saw the genuine curiosity etched on his face. Watching her unveil intricate sculptures made of discarded materials awakened something long dormant in him, the desire to nurture, to guide. But he hesitated. The million-dollar question weighed heavily on his mind. Would helping her empower her dreams, or create an unwelcome dependency? As the days turned into weeks, their bond grew, yet tension simmered just beneath the surface. He envisioned an art showcase, a platform for Mia's creativity, but panic gripped him. What if it backfired? What if his attempts to elevate her brought about more burden than liberation? And then, an unexpected twist unraveled. Through researching family connections, a vein of shared blood surfaced, intertwining their fates and erupting questions of identity and privilege. In that moment, Jack felt trapped within his opulent prison. The clock didn't just tick, it pounded against his conscience. Would he dare to launch forth into the uncertainty of their joined past? To redefine his legacy? Or would fear continue to chain him down, leaving both their lives suspended in fragile hopes? As the stakes rose, Jack stood at the edge of reckoning. A choice loomed, dark and alluring, ready to shape both their futures in unimaginable ways. In the following days, Jack grappled with the implications of his discovery. The mansion, once a sanctuary of comfort, transformed into a cavern of anxiety. The walls seemed to close in as he revisited the notion of family, questioning the very foundation on which his life was built. He felt as if he had been living a facade, proficiently acting the role of a successful billionaire, while ignoring the deeper attributes that defined him: a father, a mentor, and ultimately, a human being capable of connection. Mia increasingly found her way into his thoughts. Her artwork, vibrant and original, had been a silent scream for acknowledgement, something he had overlooked amidst his usual ensconcement in business affairs. He envisioned her sculptures towering in a gallery, their impact echoing beyond the borders of their disparate backgrounds. The idea took root, compelling him to act, yet doubt held him back. What if, in his enthusiasm, he undermined her autonomy? The nights grew heavier with uncertainty. He started spending more time with Mia, facilitating sessions in the art studio he had outfitted for her, with brushes, canvases, and giant bags of scrap materials. Each session peeled back layers of his own life, revealing insecurities he preferred not to confront, and the thrilling spark of their artistic collaboration rekindled something dormant inside him. He began to explain not just the techniques of art, but the essence of expressing emotions through creation. "Painting is like telling a secret," he explained one evening, watching her paint strokes transform a canvas into a riot of colors. "You're showing what's within without saying a single word. What do you want to say?" She hesitated, grasping the weight of the question. "I want to show that even little things can be beautiful," she finally replied, a cautious but determined glint in her eyes. As they continued their sessions, he noticed a transformation in her. The shy girl who once cleaned dishes at odd hours blossomed into an artist. Her frustration turned into passion, and her voice grew louder, more confident. And in aligning her dreams with his vision, Jack realized the shift was mutual. Her fire ignited his intimidating resolve. But the shadows that enveloped him didn't dissipate. The looming question of how to reconcile their shared history stirred a constant itch in his mind. What did it mean for him to become a father figure now, given the revelations that tied them together? He tried to dissect his feelings: fear, obligation, hope. But the more he delved into the complexity of their reality, the more entangled he felt. One evening, as they worked side by side, he heard Mia singing softly, lost in her artistic world. Her innocence spun around him, wrapping him in threads of responsibility. The gravity of what it meant to look beyond a surface, the privilege that shielded him, settled deep into his conscience. He now stood at a precipice. The threshold between fear of overstepping boundaries and the possibility of fostering an authentic relationship blurred in his mind. Mia deserved freedom, not chains disguised as support. The looming art showcase was both an opportunity and a risk. Facing the mirror in his office, Jack reflected on how much there was to learn from a child. His thoughts ricocheted between dreams and reality, desire and hesitance. One phrase echoed within him: relentless and demanding. The moment of truth was nearing, and he could no longer evade the deeper implications of their entwined fates. The decision weighed heavily on his shoulders, but it was time to confront the reality of their bond, to either fold into the desperate need for connection or risk shattering this fragile sanctuary they had built. Would he fully embrace the chaos of their shared destiny, or would fear dictate his retreat into cold opulence? The night grew darker outside the mansion, the horizon deepening into shadows, as Jack's heart raced in anticipation of an impending revelation. Would he seize the moment to redefine his legacy alongside Mia? Or would postponement destroy the very fabric of their newfound bond? The answer awaited him just beyond the threshold of fear, swelling into a crescendo of possibilities. Jack awoke the following morning, a tempest of thoughts swirling in his mind. The daylight pooled around his feet, illuminating a stark reminder of the choices he had yet to make. He felt an insistent tugging within, urging him to take the leap into the tumultuous waters of paternal responsibility. However, the fear of dismantling what little normalcy they had achieved loomed larger than ever. As he descended the grand staircase, he found Mia in the art studio, her brow furrowed in concentration as she molded clay into delicate shapes. This time, the quiet ambiance felt electric, crackling with unspoken potential. He paused, taking in her dedication. Here was a child blossoming among bright colors and tangible mediums, unleashing her inner tumult onto every surface. He could feel the weight of their connection, woven into each stroke and sculpt. "Good morning, Mia," he said, adopting a casual tone to mask his inner turmoil. Mia looked up, her face lighting up in an instant. "Morning, Mr. Sullivan. Look at this." She held up her clay creation, a malformed figure that somehow captured an essence of vulnerability. He marveled at her raw honesty, her willingness to share imperfections in a medium he once regarded solely as a tool for profit. "Each artist's touch is unique," he remarked, suddenly seized by the desire to plunge deeper into her world. "What do you want it to express?" "Not everything has to be perfect, or even understood," she replied, her youthful earnestness piercing him. "Just like us." Her simple words unraveled something within him. How could he, a man so entrenched in meticulous planning and control, accept the imperfect journey of life? Fear gnawed at his insides. What if he failed in embracing this role and crushed her spirit instead? Taking a measured breath, he felt the tide shift in a way he hadn't anticipated. They had a gallery showcase approaching, and with each raw session, Mia's confidence grew. But so did the weight of his apprehension. Maybe sharing that journey would not just help her, but also offer him a pathway into embracing vulnerability. "Would you like to collaborate on something for the showcase?" he asked, his intent straightforward. "It could be a celebration of our journey, the artist and the mentor." Mia's eyes widened, disbelief morphing into excitement. "Like a joint piece? Together?" "Yes," he affirmed, feeling his earlier hesitations wane. "Your voice needs to be the loudest in this endeavor. Let's showcase your talent unfiltered. I want to give you the platform you deserve." As they began brainstorming, he felt an unfamiliar sensation, a resonance of fulfillment that had been absent from his corporate achievements. Every idea sparked between them became fuel for his own aspirations. He began reflecting on his past. How many times had he allowed his financial successes to drown out the echoes of his humanity? In the weeks that followed, the studio transformed into a sanctuary of creation. He encouraged Mia to take ownership, to lead discussions on themes and materials. The artworks, melding her innocent perspective with his experience, became a powerful narrative of growth and resilience. Yet, in this collaboration, Jack discovered layers of himself that lay dormant. His compassion interwove itself within their work, giving shape to an altered legacy. But as the opening approached, a new wave of anxiety crashed over him. Would they be prepared for the scrutiny, not just from the audience, but from themselves? The prospect of exposing their raw connection, father figure and artist, shook him to the core. One evening, as they signed their completed pieces, it became alarmingly clear. This was more than an art showcase. It was a declaration of who they were becoming, unveiling vulnerabilities that challenged societal structures. Jack's resolve was tested anew. In this embrace of mutual transformation lay the risk of deeper connection, but also the threat of heartache. As he studied the vibrant pieces before him, a foreboding thought loomed. Would he have the fortitude to go through with this unveiling? The day of the showcase approached as if racing toward a collision. Uncertainty wrapped around him like dark tendrils. Could he stand firm when the world saw them? As the hours drew nearer, the tension hung heavily in the air, and Jack felt every ounce of his past decisions aligning for a decisive moment. Would he step boldly into the light beside Mia, or would the fear of judgment pull him back into the shadows? The answer hovered just out of reach, and one thing was clear. It was now or never. As the day of the showcase dawned, Jack found himself grappling with a volatile mix of anticipation and dread. The usual routines of his corporate life felt like distant echoes, a stark contrast to the rawness and vulnerability that awaited him in the gallery. It was not just about the art. It was about what it represented, an unveiling of truths he had long buried beneath the weight of success and scrutiny. Mia was in high spirits, bustling around the studio with an enthusiasm he had rarely seen. Each piece they crafted felt like a heartbeat, resonating deeper than any deal he had ever closed. Yet, every laughter that bubbled between them tightened a coil of anxiety in his chest. This was more than a showcase. It was a launch into the unknown, not just for Mia, but for him as well. Could he truly shed the shackles of his past? Standing by her side as they prepared their pieces for transport to the gallery, he noticed the way she effortlessly engaged with materials, her hands gracefully guiding the clay with a purpose that felt instinctive. The weight of his adult years and insecurities suddenly seemed trivial compared to her youthful passion. He caught himself in a moment of reflection, questioning his purpose. What had he contributed to the world beyond profit margins? "Are you nervous, Mr. Sullivan?" Mia's voice jolted him back. It was infectious, the innocence and clarity in her question. "Maybe a little," he admitted, allowing her to glimpse his uncertainty. "But I believe in what we've created together." She smiled knowingly, her eyes sparkling with an affirmation that felt like a promise. For the first time, he sensed the profound impact of mutual trust. If he could embrace both the responsibility of mentorship and allow his vulnerabilities to surface, perhaps the fear that had haunted him could be diminished. The gallery buzzed with excitement, its walls adorned with their collaborative pieces that told the intricate story of their journey. As the crowd began to filter in, Jack felt the primal urge to retreat. The flood of judgment and expectation swirled around him, tightening like a noose. Yet, he caught sight of Mia amid the thrums of activity, passionately explaining her work to a small group, her voice unwavering. Watching her flourish ignited a long dormant spark in him, forcing him to confront his hesitations head-on. This was their narrative, poised to be witnessed, not just by the art world, but by themselves. He acknowledged the gravity of what lay before them, not just mere art, but the courage to be seen in their truest forms. As they stood ready at the entrance, the moment unfurled before them. Jack scanned the room, eyes landing on well-known critics and art enthusiasts who leaned in closer, their curiosity piqued. Would they truly appreciate the essence of vulnerability that infused their creation? Instinct and fear battled within him, threatening to silence the burgeoning clarity he felt. Then he took a step forward, compelled by a force he couldn't quite articulate. "Let's welcome everyone," he whispered to Mia, an unexpected confidence igniting within him. They moved together, side by side, an unspoken alliance built on shared courage. The moment he placed a hand on Mia's shoulder, a realization struck. The true unveiling lay not solely in their art, but in the affirmation of their shared journey. He breathed deeply, reminding himself of her earlier words. Not everything has to be perfect or even understood. As they greeted the guests, Jack's heart raced, a mixture of vulnerability and pride flooding his senses. This was more than a showcase. It was a declaration of self-acceptance, a step toward redefining what it meant to be a mentor, a father figure, and ultimately a man. Yet as the conversations began to roll, the future loomed ominously close. Was he really prepared to expose himself to scrutiny, to the risk of failure that lay ahead? Could he truly navigate the art world's harsh currents? The stakes were rising, and Jack was about to face a challenge that would force him to confront not only the perceptions of others, but his own deepest fears. As he and Mia engaged more deeply with the attendees, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, one that sent a chill down his spine and raised the stakes to an unforeseen level. The chill coursed through Jack as he locked eyes with the figure emerging from the crowd, a former business partner whose presence was like a specter from his past. Marcus Thompson had always exuded an aura of authority and intimidation, his sharp gaze capable of disarming anyone who crossed his path. Jack could feel the weight of those old memories pressing against him, dredging up insecurities that he thought he'd left behind. This was the man who had once critiqued his every business move, the same voice that had echoed throughout boardrooms, reminding him of his perceived failures. "Jack, I didn't expect to see you here," Marcus said, a hint of condescension lacing his words. "I could say the same about you," Jack replied, forcing a smile that felt false. The words rang in his ears, an echo of his prior professional life, where he had learned to mask his uncertainty. But tonight was different. Tonight, he was stepping into the light, ready to embrace the messiness of his journey, rather than hiding behind polished presentations and financial statements. With a practiced calm, he watched how Mia seamlessly navigated a small crowd of admirers. Their fascination with her work allowed Jack to draw strength from her courage. She was unafraid. Her genuine passion resonated with those around her, forcing Jack to confront his own misgivings. The juxtaposition of Mia's honesty and his own facade became glaring, propelling him to challenge himself in that moment. "Here's the thing, Marcus," Jack began, looking directly into his former partner's eyes, his voice surprisingly steady. "What I'm doing now has more value than any of the billion-dollar deals we once made. This art represents a journey of self-discovery. It's real, and it matters." The amusement that flickered across Marcus's face only served to fuel Jack's resolve. It was a decision point. How would he handle this confrontation? Would he succumb to the pressure of old patterns, retreating into the comfort of silence, or step fully into the now, letting his vulnerability guide the interaction? "Art? Really?" Marcus drawled, the skepticism dripping from his tone. "You're throwing your career away for a couple of clay sculptures?" With every word, Jack felt the heat rising in his chest. It was exhilarating and terrifying. This was not just about the art anymore. It was about embracing his own identity, finally dismissing the need for approval from someone who had defined success in so narrow terms. "Art is a language, Marcus. It's a way of telling stories without saying a word," Jack articulated, slicing through the insecurity tangling within him. This was a defining moment, a point of evolution in his relationship with himself. "I've spent years chasing the wrong metrics of success. I am learning to find value in other ways, and that's not something you can quantify." The corners of Marcus's mouth twitched, a brief flicker of confusion crossing his features, as if he couldn't reconcile this new Jack with the one he had long regarded as simply a business cog. The thoughts swirled in Jack's mind. Who was he beyond the confines of corporate ambition? As the conversation progressed with unexpected intensity, Jack no longer felt the urge to retreat, but embraced the vulnerability it offered. Yet even amidst this newfound bravery, a gnawing realization settled over him. Could he sustain this shift once he returned to the pressures of the corporate world? Would this moment of truth alter his trajectory, or would it fade as the art hanging around him grew dim? Just as he was ready to delve deeper into his convictions, another interruption occurred. A voice pushed through the crowd, loud and unmistakable. "Jack Sullivan, is that really you?" The question froze him in place, redirecting his attention. This wasn't just a voice from his past. It was a confrontation he had not anticipated. Would this next encounter shake the foundational changes he had worked hard to cultivate? Or would it propel him even further into self-discovery? Jack turned, heart racing, poised to face whoever had now appeared at both a critical juncture and crossroads of his transformation. What awaited him could very well reshape his newfound identity. Jack steadied himself, attempting to reconcile the unease bubbling in his throat with the resolve he had summoned moments before. As he turned to face the voice, a whirlwind of emotions swept over him, each more potent than the last. The sight before him was unexpected yet strangely familiar. Emily, a childhood friend and a relentless whisper from his past, stood before him with an intensity that rivaled Marcus's. "Emily," he acknowledged, surprised, but also aware of how a single word could crystallize the complexity of their shared history. Memories tumbled through his mind. Carefree days of youth, aspirations that had become tangled in misplaced ambition. What had happened to the dreams they had shared? "Jack! It's been years!" she exclaimed, her voice laced with an enthusiasm that felt oddly grounding. He noted how her curls bounced playfully as she moved closer, but the vibrant nostalgia quickly melted away when he recognized the shadows beneath her excitement. The years had not only shaped her, but each of them had been molded by separate challenges and triumphs. Yeah, it really has. He could feel the subtle pressure of her gaze, as if she sought to climb through the layers he had so carefully constructed. "What brings you here?" She glanced around, as if seeking validation within the crowd. I'm showing pieces in the gallery, actually. Just got involved with a local collective. It's been amazing." Jack's heart quickened. It was refreshing to see someone else stepping into the creative light, yet doubt seeped in. How could Emily draw this world into focus while he struggled with the shadows of his former identity? "You're an artist? I remember you drew those sketches back at school." A small smile broke through, reminding him how that innocence felt. "I've been working at it. There's something freeing about art. It's like it helps me breathe. Don't tell me you've been stuck in that corporate graveyard." Jack caught himself, conscious of Marcus's lingering gaze. "I'm transitioning." He paused, mulling the gravity of the word. "I'm exploring new paths. It's complicated." "Complicated can be good," she offered, eyes sparking with unwarranted determination. Her unwavering gaze pulled something from within him, perhaps a repressed desire to share his struggles, or a longing for companionship amid uncertainty. "What happened? Last I heard you were climbing the corporate ladder pretty high." "I was." Jack inhaled deeply, a wave of courage rising. "But I realized I was aiming for the wrong heights. I've started making art. It's more fulfilling than anything business ever offered." The words tumbled out of him unexpectedly, and he felt a weight lift as he declared them aloud. Emily's brow knitted in curiosity, leaving space for his vulnerability to stretch further. Yet, he hesitated. What would she think of his decision? "If it makes you feel alive, go for it. You've always had that spark." Her voice rang with genuine support, urging Jack to discard any self-doubt. But then, she added, "Just be careful that you're not running away from something instead of running toward something." Her words bore into him, an unsettling truth wrapped in the sweetness of concern. Was this journey truly about self-discovery? Or was he fleeing the remnants of his previous life? A layer of unresolved conflict began to unfurl within him. "Do you think it's possible to reclaim one's passions after abandoning them for so long?" he ventured, grappling with the implications of her reminder. "Of course." Emily's certainty glowed, a beacon shining through his self-doubt. "You might stumble along the way, but every misstep is a part of the dance. Just keep your heart in front, and you'll find your rhythm." Jack considered her words against the looming shadows of Marcus and the underlying chorus of memories that chanted from his past. Could he reclaim not only his passion, but his identity? As Marcus interjected with a mocking remark in the distance, Jack felt a visceral urge to step up and define his own narrative, a moment of metaphorical standing on a tightrope between two worlds. Could he balance both fear and ambition long enough to forge a path that felt true to himself? His thoughts raced, grappling with this internal tempest. What revelation awaited him if he fully engaged with this new canvas his life had become? "Want to grab coffee later?" Emily asked, her genuine interest pulling him back. "Yeah, I'd like that," he replied, determination intertwining with intrigue. Jack's response came not just as an invitation, but as an unspoken promise to himself. He would push against boundaries, confront fears, and embrace the mess of his journey. And in that moment, with Marcus watching and Emily radiating possibilities, he understood that the greatest revelations often arise not in isolation, but collectively. Yet could he confront Marcus, and more importantly himself, with the same fervor he felt with Emily? The answer lingered, a question to be answered in the unfolding journey ahead. Jack found himself acutely aware of the texture of the moment as he and Emily slipped away from the crowd. The bustling gallery seemed a world away, and with each step towards the cafe, he felt a shift within him, a forward momentum as palpable as the crisp morning air. Emily's exuberance was infectious, but a storm brewed beneath Jack's surface, a mixture of vulnerability and determination. The cafe was a small, quaint establishment, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the scent of croissants, creating an atmosphere that felt both welcoming and intimidating. Jack settled into his seat, his fingers tracing the rim of his cup as he wrestled with conflicting thoughts. This was a different kind of battleground than the corporate world he was used to, a space where creativity reigned, but also one tinged with the fear of exposure. Isn't it beautiful? Emily placed her hands on the table, drawing his attention back. The sunlight caught the warm hues in her hair, and for a brief moment, Jack allowed himself to believe in the clarity she radiated. Yeah, it really is. He hesitated. What's the secret, Em? How did you make it work? There was a deep yearning in his voice, a need to understand her journey as much as it was a need to illuminate his own shadowy path. She smiled, a knowing smile that had layers of experience behind it. I faced my fears. Art was a lot of things for me. It was a struggle, a sanctuary, and eventually it became my truth. His soul curled inward, recoiling at the suggestion that truth lay hiding behind barriers he had built. He had always thought that his ambition and corporate success defined him. But it's hard to jump when the safety net is gone, he confessed, his voice lowered, laden with uncertainty. Then find a new net, she said, her gaze steady. Redefine safety. It's not about never falling. It's about getting up every time you do. You bought into the belief that the corporate world was your only path. What if you gave yourself permission to fail and grow in art? That's where discovery happens. Her words hit him like a thunderclap, igniting synapses he didn't know were dormant. He had refused to see that failure in one aspect of life could lead to unexpected growth in another. But there it was, a simple yet powerful truth. The conversation shifted, bouncing between memories of their youth and their dreams that once seemed so possible. Jack could feel Emily challenging him to dig deeper into that past, the one littered with both their ambitions and their fears. But there was still a flicker of resistance within him. What about the judgment? He asked, the insecurity seeping into his voice. What if people don't accept this version of me? Emily tilted her head, her eyes narrowed in contemplation. Are you creating for them, or for yourself? Your fears are just echoes of other people's opinions. What matters is how you feel when you create. If it makes you whole, that's all that should matter. As the talk ebbed and flowed, Jack found his resolve softening. Emily's perspective was like a light on a path he had abandoned. Suddenly the future didn't seem so bleak, the fear of mediocrity less daunting. But buried within that possibility was a lingering concern. What would Marcus say? Would he relish the opportunity to scoff at Jack's attempts, or would he be indifferent, the ever-encroaching specter clouding his ambition? I'm still scared, Jack admitted, his voice a half-whisper, fear creeping back in. Especially with Marcus lurking around. I'm constantly second-guessing myself. Use that fear, Emily urged softly, her tone supportive yet firm. It's a sign you care. Just don't let it paralyze you. Jack nodded, the thread of her wisdom weaving into his consciousness. But he was still wrestling with the magnitude of confronting not only Marcus, but the versions of himself that had taken refuge in complacency. They finished their coffee, the aura of warmth and camaraderie hanging in the air like an unshakable bond. Jack felt a stirring within him, a flicker of hope igniting in the depths of his uncertainty. As they stepped back onto the street, a sense of growing clarity enveloped him. Maybe I'll start painting again, he said tentatively, not fully committed, but electrified by the mere thought of taking that first step. Emily's face lit up, authentic enthusiasm shining through. That's what I want to hear. Just let it flow. Find what it means to you. But as they turned the corner, Jack caught sight of Marcus across the street. The strident laugh echoed in his direction, igniting that familiar ball of dread within. Jack's heart raced at the sight. There it was again, the anchor of his past effort to drag him down. Confrontation lay ahead, hovering like a cloud of uncertainty. Could he truly stand firm against both Marcus's derision and the self-imposed chains he had carried for years? The moment was at hand, a pivot point that could either strip him of what little resolve he had accumulated or propel him to new heights. Jack felt an exhilaration thrumming with fear. With every fiber of his being, he was about to challenge the boundaries he had accepted for so long, and the outcome might just reshape the man he had thought he'd lost. Jack's gaze locked onto Marcus, whose presence felt like a heavy stone dropped in his stomach. The laugh still echoed, loud and mocking, a reminder of inadequacies he tried to paint over with layers of success and ambition. Marcus leaned against a lamppost, casually flipping through his phone, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within Jack. "Just breathe, you've got this," Emily whispered, her voice gentle yet encouraging. But Jack could feel the weight of doubt compelling him to retreat. Each of Marcus's chuckles felt like an echo of his own fears, reverberating through his mind. What if Marcus was right? What if he truly was just a shadow of the man he once aspired to be? "Let's keep walking," he suggested, a little too quickly, but Emily just smiled knowingly. "You're not going to let him dictate your self-worth, are you?" she challenged softly. Jack hesitated. How could he not? Marcus was everything he feared being. Successful, unyielding, a reminder of every compromise he had ever made. Instead of feeling isolated, he felt trapped, a man caught between two worlds. "Listen," Emily spoke, with a confidence that flickered like a flame. "You can't control how Marcus sees you, but you can control how you respond. What do you want to show him?" The question hung painfully in the air, and suddenly Jack envisioned himself, brush in hand, painting with abandon. It was intoxicating, the thought of being wholly self-expressive, but that thought was equally frightening. "Art is subjective," he ventured slowly, testing the waters of his own courage. "I might fail." "Maybe, but what if you soar?" she countered. "What if every stroke feels like freedom? What if you discover something you didn't know you were capable of?" As if puncturing a tense bubble, Marcus shouted Jack's name across the street, his tone overtly playful, yet laced with a sharper undertone. "Hey, Jack, didn't expect to see you with... what's her name?" Jack cringed. The taunt hung in the air, and for a moment he recoiled into the safe, familiar disposition he had perfected. Would he even know how to respond? The whimsical voice of his youth faded, replaced by the weight of his former self. But in that moment, Emily's steady gaze reminded him of the promise he had just made to himself. "A brush can be a sword," Jack whispered, almost to himself, a revelation sparking in his chest. "Exactly," Emily urged, just an inch closer to him, her eyes locked onto his with such intensity that he almost felt naked. "Show him you're not afraid to be who you are. This is your story to rewrite. You can either let him sculpt your narrative or take the brush in your own hand." The tension within him shifted from a debilitating pressure to a simmering resolve. In an instant, he decided to confront the ghost of his past, the version of Marcus that represented all the opportunities lost in place of conformity. "Hey, Marcus," Jack called out, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "I'm actually finding a new path. I'm going to start painting again." The laughter stopped, and for a split second, Jack could see confusion flicker across Marcus's face. The words hung in the air, charged with defiance. "What? You mediocre at art?" Marcus replied, feigning disbelief, though there was something darker resonating beneath his words. It was the direct challenge Jack needed, the fuel that stoked his resolve. "Maybe," Jack replied, feeling the energy ripple through him. "But I'll never know unless I try." A small shift occurred between them, a crack in the armor that had bound him. He felt the space around him expanding, allowing his true self to step slightly forward. As the tension adjusted, Emily leaned closer, her smile warm and genuine. "That's the spirit. Now we just have to find a canvas for you to unleash that creativity." But Jack felt a looming presence still coiling within him, a cocktail of excitement and fear mixing into an unpredictable force. In a world defined by bravado and external validation, could he really define his worth on his own terms? An unsettling thrill rippled through him as he contemplated the next challenge. A canvas to decorate with the colors of his renewed ambitions awaited. Jack realized just then, it was not about Marcus. It was about reclaiming himself. As they walked away, the tension gradually fell away like snow melting in the spring sun. Yet inside, an ember continued to smolder, ready to ignite. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new fears, and with them an inevitable confrontation, one with Marcus that could either complicate his aspirations or propel him forward into uncharted territory. He was on the brink of something extraordinary. The question now loomed: what price would he pay to embrace his authentic creative self? Jack spent the night tossing and turning, thoughts swirling like chaotic paint on a splattered canvas. Each flicker of memory tied to Marcus ignited old insecurities intertwined with the newfound resolve to embrace his artistic aspirations. What had felt like a rebirth in that moment had now transitioned into a shadowy unease, one that threatened to pull him back into the familiar embrace of self-doubt. When dawn's light seeped into his room, Jack found himself staring at an empty wall that beckoned him like a blank canvas, inviting yet intimidating. The prospect of painting felt both liberating and daunting. Would he truly allow himself to be vulnerable enough to express feelings he had concealed for so long? He picked up his phone and scrolled through images of contemporary works on Instagram, searching for inspiration, yet finding only reasons to hesitate. "Focus," he muttered to himself, another round of internal negotiation beginning. He thought about what Emily had said. If he genuinely wanted Marcus to see him in a different light, then he needed to act, no waiting or second-guessing. Channeling the boldness from the previous day's confrontation, he took a deep breath and texted Emily, "Let's go buy some supplies later." As they chatted back and forth about colors and canvases over coffee, he felt an electric tension pulsing through their conversation. Emily was not just a cheerleader, but a spark igniting something deeper within him, a sense of accountability. Once you start, even if it feels messy, just don't stop. "The struggle is where the growth happens," she said, biting into a croissant. "Yeah, I guess I have to find a balance between the chaos and the structure," Jack replied, reluctantly accepting that his previously meticulous life would never blend seamlessly with the creative turmoil that surely lay ahead. Arriving at the art supply store, Jack walked alongside Emily, oddly aware of their steps. Each queue of colored paint tubes screamed potential, illuminating the walls with possibilities. He picked a few tubes hesitantly and set them on the counter with a slight tremor of excitement. A canvas waited at home, and before he realized it, he had already crossed the threshold from thought into action. The first stroke was pure instinct, and the rush of pigment against the surface sent shockwaves through him. Each additional stroke was an expression, a reflection of the emotional tangle he had battled for so many years. As colors merged and collided, Jack felt layers of self-imposed limitations peel away. For the first time in years, he was truly communicating with himself. The brush felt like an extension of his very essence. But even amidst the exhilaration of creation, dark thoughts crept back in uninvited. Was this good enough? Would Marcus dismiss it as childlike? Yet, as the frantic dance of chaos subsided, Jack realized that the judgment he feared was less significant than the affirmation he discovered within himself. He stood back to examine his work, breathing deeply through the ache of vulnerability. When he finished, his hands stained with colors that bore witness to his efforts, he reluctantly acknowledged the piece. It was ungainly, perhaps, but it was honest. At that moment, a notification chimed on his phone. It was a message from Marcus. "Hey, what's this I hear about you trying to become an artist? Should I mark my calendar for your gallery opening?" The antagonism was palpable, a reminder of the playground taunts that haunted him still. But this time, something vital shook within him. Not fear, but clarity. Instead of feeling belittled, he felt emboldened by the challenge. "Come see it sometime," Jack typed back, a fire igniting within him. "You might be surprised by what I'm creating." The implicit challenge hung there between the lines, charged and electric. This was more than just an exchange. It was a confrontation of ideals, an invitation for Marcus to witness his evolution. Could he convert this confrontation into a stepping stone? He could feel the enormity of what was beginning to transpire, inviting him into his next chapter. Tomorrow held the potential for a direct encounter with Marcus, and the stakes had been raised significantly. Jack understood now that it wasn't merely about art. It was about reclaiming his narrative, reinforcing his evolution. The question emerged. How would Marcus respond to this regenerated Jack? What lengths would he go to discredit the rebirth? The next move was his. Jack was acutely aware that the moment of truth was drawing closer, and he was ready to rise or fall on his own terms. The following morning brought an unfamiliar dawn, one that filled Jack with an exhilarating sense of purpose rather than the suffocating fear that had gripped him in previous days. He stood in front of his canvas, the paint still wet, a stark representation of his journey. The colors chaotic yet expressive. This piece represented more than mere decorations. It was a manifesto of reclaiming his identity, a declaration born from the crucible of self-discovery. Fueled by newfound confidence, Jack took a moment to appreciate the metamorphosis that had begun. He had crossed from a life of numbing success into a vibrant exploration of creativity that bore no chains. Each stroke whispered of past struggles and heralded the promise of potential yet unfurled. The anxiety of Marcus's looming response felt trivial against the backdrop of his emerging authenticity. Today would mark the moment interactions would shift. The invitation he'd extended to Marcus had transformed his fear into a challenge, a gauntlet thrown. He dressed intentionally, not for Marcus's benefit, but for himself, a symbolic armor for the confrontation ahead. Each garment wore the weight of both trepidation and triumph. When the clock ticked toward their agreed meeting time, anticipation coursed through him, tinged with vulnerability. Inviting Marcus into his creative space posed risks he had not fully processed, but there was a strong, underlying current. He was no longer a mere pawn in a corporate game. This was about courage, about showcasing who he was evolving to be. Mia's laughter echoed in his heart, reminding him of their journey together, the importance of nurturing dreams and risking vulnerability. He thought of Emily, whose encouragement had cracked open the door he'd kept tightly shut. As he waited for Marcus, Jack mentally rehearsed possible conversations. What strength could he draw upon when faced with skepticism? The door swung open, and Marcus entered, a shadow in the bright space of creativity. "Interesting setup you've got here," he remarked, glancing at the colorful chaos that filled the room. Jack noticed the quirk of a skeptical eyebrow that threatened to cross his carefully choreographed steps forward. "Glad you could make it, Marcus," Jack replied, anchoring his tone with the steadiness he had painstakingly cultivated. "I wanted you to see what I've been working on." "Right. Your little art experiment." Marcus stepped closer, eyes evaluating each piece with the scrutinizing gaze of a critic. Jack held his breath, every fiber of his being bracing for the onslaught of critique wrapped in polished disdain. Jack gestured toward a canvas first, allowing a confident smile to brush his lips. "This is a collaboration, actually, with Mia. It represents both growth and the beauty of embracing imperfection. It's about narratives intertwined. The silence that followed stretched tightly between them, the weight of Marcus's judgment a palpable entity in the room. "She's your maid's daughter, right?" he questioned, a hint of condescension lacing his words. "What makes you think that this partnership even holds value?" "Because it does." Jack's voice rang with an unexpected power, his insecurities morphing into assertiveness. "Art is an outlet, an extension of our shared experiences. It's not merely about aesthetics, it's about truth, something you've never understood." Marcus's expression shifted slightly, surprise flickering briefly as he processed this revelation. The fire inside Jack reignited, stoking embers of resolve he didn't know existed. "This is what I've chosen. To create and express, not to impress. I won't be bound by arbitrary definitions of success anymore." It was a battle cry wrapped in vulnerability, born from the realization that his measures of success had strayed from mere profits into the realm of purpose. The air thickened with tension. Jack could almost hear Marcus struggling to recalibrate his understanding of the situation. For the first time, Jack's personal fulfillment overshadowed external validation. "I see you've changed," Marcus said, an outsider probing into uncharted territory. "But let's be real here. It's an uphill battle. Not everything you paint will resonate with the audience." "That's the point." Jack leaned forward, conviction surging through him. "I'm not seeking everyone's approval. I'm finally discovering who I am outside the walls of corporate strategy." As Jack continued to elaborate on his vision and the exhilarating beauty of uncertainty, he noticed a change in Marcus, an intriguing blend of disbelief and grudging respect. Jack felt lighter with each word, peeling away layers of hesitance as Marcus listened intently. "You've got guts, Jack. I'll give you that," Marcus finally acknowledged, though the skepticism did not entirely vanish. "But there's more to this than whimsical paintings." "I know," Jack replied, emboldened by the clarity of his path. His resolve flickered with strength as he laid bare the realities he had faced, the fears he had battled, and the journey to embrace failure as a catalyst for growth. Jack felt his own expertise entwined in the conversation. He had been a master of the deal, but now he was a creator of his identity. He had opened the door to a new reality. "Dare to be different," Jack declared, capturing Marcus's full attention. "It's a liberty once evaded. Art welcomes us to be flawed, genuine. In a world rife with superficiality, that's the narrative I value most." He could sense the shift in Marcus's stance, a realization dawning as his former partner seemed to see not only the artist in Jack, but the man ready to reclaim his narrative. A pervasive peace settled around Jack, the sense of triumph over past insecurities melding with warmth. "Maybe I need to reconsider my own path too," Marcus admitted cautiously. "But this doesn't mean it will transform your career." "No," Jack replied confidently. "It means it will transform my life. And that's worth far more than any corporate triumph." As they stood amid the scattered canvases, Jack felt the transformation within. He was claiming his territory, not just on the canvas, but in life. This was no longer a confrontation to avoid, but a bridge forging connections through shared experience. As the conversation began to unfold into shared truths and aspirations, Jack realized that personal accomplishment transcended the metrics of business. It lay in authentic expression, growth, and embracing the complexities of existence alongside art. In the end, the success of this encounter resonated beyond mere words. It transformed into an agreement, the beginnings of mutual respect. They were no longer just creator and critic. They were two men exploring the boundaries of self, embarking on a journey that would resonate far beyond the confines of their former lives. Jack had reclaimed himself, conquered the fear that once shackled him, and, in the process, discovered the artist worth celebrating inside his own heart. As he looked toward the bright future, Jack held on to the promise that every canvas represented an opportunity to redefine not just artistry, but existence itself. And as Marcus stepped away, it solidified one truth. Fear can be transformed through connection, vulnerability, and the courage to face one's true self. Now, he simply had to remember to continue that journey, both for himself and for the little girl who inspired him along the way. If you want to experience more stories of transformation, don't wait another moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending below. Your input means the world. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories know how essential it is to support the community.